The champagne glass shattered before Madison Sterling even realized her hand had gone numb. 1 second she was mid-laugh, telling Trish about her new Tesla and the Hamptons vacation they'd just booked. The next second, her eyes locked on the white Maybach rolling through the iron gates of Grandview Country Club, and her entire body went cold. Not the luxury car cold. Madison knew luxury. Her garage had plenty of it. This was different. This was the ice in your veins cold that comes when your past pulls up in $500,000 of German engineering, and you know with sickening certainty that karma just arrived in style. The terrace fell silent as the Maybach glided to a stop, not with the aggressive rumble of new money, but with the whisper-quiet confidence of wealth so old it doesn't need to announce itself. Every head turned, every conversation died, because in a parking lot full of luxury cars, this machine made everything else look like toys. Madison's husband grabbed her arm. "Babe, your glass." She didn't hear him, couldn't hear him, because the chauffeur, an actual chauffeur in white gloves and a black suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent, was walking around to the passenger door with military precision, and Madison's heart was slamming against her ribs like it was trying to escape what was coming. No, she thought desperately. It can't be her. Not after everything. Not like this. The door opened. A leg emerged first. Long, dark, flawless, wrapped in crimson silk that caught the afternoon sun like liquid fire. Then came the shoe. Black patent leather Louboutin, red sole flashing like a warning, heel hitting the stone driveway with a click that somehow echoed across the entire terrace like a judge's gavel. And then she stepped out fully, and Madison felt the ground tilt beneath her feet. Irene Parker. But not the Irene Parker they remembered. Not the broken girl who ate lunch in bathroom stalls while they laughed outside the door. Not the charity case they'd mocked for 4 years straight. Not the ugly duckling they'd invited here as a joke, expecting her to show up desperate for their approval. Still poor, still pathetic, still proving that they'd been right about her all along. This woman wore a crimson Valentino gown that cost more than Madison's car payment. Around her neck, a Harry Winston diamond necklace that could buy a house. On her wrists, matching bracelets that sparkled with enough carats to blind. Her natural hair, the same hair they'd called nappy and unprofessional and ghetto, now cascaded in goddess locks adorned with gold and diamonds, styled like a crown for a queen who'd earned her throne through blood, sweat, and surviving people like Madison Sterling. But it wasn't the dress. It wasn't the jewels. It wasn't even the Maybach sitting behind her like a white throne on wheels. It was her face. Calm, peaceful, utterly, devastatingly, completely untouchable. She looked at the crowd gathered on the terrace, all her former tormentors in their department store confidence and mall jewelry, and her expression didn't change. No smirk of victory, no hunger for their approval, no desperation to prove anything. Just the bone-deep serenity of someone who'd walked through hell, emerged as fire itself, and realized she no longer needed their validation because she'd found something far more valuable. Her own. Irene Parker had come back to Grandview. Not for revenge, for closure. And Madison Sterling was about to learn that sometimes the cruelest thing someone can do is simply show you exactly who you destroyed. And watch your face when you realize they not only survived, but became everything you secretly feared they could be. Listen, before we go any further, I need you to do something for me. And I'm not asking as a channel. I'm asking as someone who believes that every single person watching this has survived something. Maybe not high school bullies, maybe something worse, maybe something different. But we've all had moments where someone looked at us and decided we weren't enough, where cruelty tried to convince us we'd never amount to anything, where we sat alone wondering if survival was even worth it. If you're watching this right now, if you've ever felt invisible, counted out, written off, or broken, I need you to know something. Your story isn't over. That chapter where they hurt you, that's not your ending. That's your origin story. That's the fire that forges you into something they could never destroy. So if you truly believe that transformation is possible, that pain doesn't write your destiny, that the people who counted you out don't get to decide your future, then do me one favor right now. Hit that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And subscribe if you want more stories that prove resilience always wins in the end. Because what happens next in Irene's story, it's going to remind you why you don't give up, why you keep fighting, why you become so magnificent that their opinions turn to dust. Your support right now, your like, your comment, your share, that's how we spread these stories to people who desperately need to hear them. People sitting in bathroom stalls right now, crying, wondering if it gets better. People who need proof that survival isn't just possible, it's powerful. So please, take 5 seconds, like this video, comment where you're from, subscribe to this channel, and let's prove together that kindness, strength, and second chances still matter in this world. Thank you. Now, let me tell you how Irene Parker became untouchable. 10 years earlier, Irene Parker arrived at Grandview Academy on a Tuesday morning in September with everything she owned packed into 2 garbage bags and a broken suitcase held together with duct tape. She was 14 years old, rail-thin from too many skipped meals, wearing a uniform her mother had bought 3 sizes too large so she could grow into it, and carrying a full academic scholarship that represented her only escape from the South Side apartments where gunshots were more common than birdsong. Her mother, Denise Parker, worked double shifts as a nurse's aide at County General, spending 16 hours a day wiping elderly patients and changing bedpans for $12 an hour. The scholarship to Grandview Academy, the most prestigious private school in the state, was supposed to be Irene's golden ticket, her chance to escape, her pathway to a better life. Instead, it became 4 years of systematic torture. Madison Sterling spotted Irene within the first hour, not because Irene stood out for any good reason, but because she was different in all the ways that mattered at Grandview. Poor, black, and painfully, obviously out of place. Madison came from the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. Her father owned 3 car dealerships and a commercial real estate portfolio. Her mother chaired the country club's social committee, and Madison herself had been raised to believe that cruelty was just another form of social Darwinism. The weak deserved to be culled. And Irene Parker looked devastatingly weak. "Look at her shoes," Madison whispered to Trish Bennett during first period English, her voice just loud enough for Irene to hear from 2 rows away. "Are those Payless? Oh my God, I didn't know people actually wore Payless anymore. I thought that was just like where homeless people shopped." Trish snorted with laughter. Amber Cho, sitting behind them, giggled into her hand. And Irene, naive, hopeful, still believing that intelligence and kindness could overcome social hierarchies, tried to focus on her textbook while her cheeks burned with shame. It got worse. By the end of freshman year, Madison had perfected the art of destroying Irene without ever getting caught. She never physically touched her, that would leave evidence. Instead, she deployed psychological warfare with surgical precision. She started rumors that Irene had lice, forcing her to sit alone in every class. She created a fake Instagram account called Grandview's Charity Case and posted photos of Irene with captions like, "When your scholarship doesn't cover soap," and "poverty, not even once." The account gained 400 followers within a week, nearly the entire student body. Teachers never saw it, administrators never knew, but Irene saw it. Every day, every post, every comment calling her ugly, dirty, worthless. Sophomore year brought new horrors. Madison discovered that Irene brought lunch from home, usually a peanut butter sandwich and an apple, and started a betting pool on how poor is Irene's lunch today. Students would gather around Irene's table in the cafeteria, point at her food, and rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. "Oh, that's a solid 8 on the poverty scale, Madison announced one day, examining Irene's sandwich like it was a museum exhibit. "No name-brand peanut butter, generic wheat bread, and... Wait, is that a bruised apple? Irene, honey, even food banks have standards." The laughter that followed was deafening. Irene stopped eating in the cafeteria after that. She started hiding in bathroom stalls during lunch, eating in silence while tears dripped onto her sandwich, trying not to make sounds that would give away her location. But Madison always found her. She'd come into the bathroom with her friends, knock on stall doors until she found the locked one, and then talk loudly about Irene like she wasn't there. I heard her mom is a janitor at some hospital. Can you imagine? My mom would literally die if she had to work like that. Actually, she'd probably just marry someone richer. That's what smart women do. But I guess when you're as ugly as Irene's mom probably is, you don't have options. Irene pressed her hands over her ears and tried not to sob. Junior year brought the winter formal incident, the night that broke something fundamental inside Irene's soul. She had saved money for 3 months, hoarding every dollar from the weekend babysitting job she wasn't supposed to have according to her scholarship terms. She bought a dress from a consignment shop, a simple navy blue gown, nothing designer, but it was clean and pretty and made her feel, for the first time since arriving at Grandview, like maybe she could belong. She did her own hair, watched YouTube tutorials until 2 a.m., and managed to create an elegant updo that made her look older, more confident, almost beautiful. When she walked into the winter formal, she felt hope flutter in her chest like a bird testing its wings. Madison was waiting. She had planned it for weeks. The perfect public humiliation timed for maximum impact. She waited until Irene was on the dance floor, swaying self-consciously to a slow song by herself, and then approached with her entire friend group in tow. "Oh my God, Irene," Madison squealed, her voice dripping with fake enthusiasm. "You came, and you're wearing a dress. That is so brave." Irene smiled uncertainly. "Thank you." Madison circled her slowly, examining the dress with exaggerated interest, her friends following like sharks smelling blood. "Where did you get this?" Madison asked, fingering the fabric with 2 fingers like it might be contaminated. "Goodwill? Salvation Army? Please tell me you at least washed it first. You know people donate clothes when family members die, right? You could literally be wearing a dead person's dress right now." The nearby students stopped dancing. A circle formed, everyone watching. "It's from a consignment shop," Irene said quietly, her voice already starting to shake. "A consignment shop," Madison repeated, her tone shifting from fake sweetness to open mockery. "So, secondhand, pre-owned, basically Goodwill with delusions of grandeur." She turned to her friends. "Guys, should we tell her?" "Tell me what?" Irene whispered. Madison's smile turned razor sharp. "That dress? I donated it 2 years ago. I wore it to my cousin's bat mitzvah, spilled red wine on it, and gave it away because it was literally trash. And you..." She started laughing, high and cruel. "You actually paid money for my garbage. Oh my God, this is perfect. Irene Parker is so poor she's wearing my wine-stained cast-offs to a formal like it's couture." The laughter started small, a few snickers, some uncomfortable giggles. But then it built, spreading through the crowd like wildfire, until it felt like the entire ballroom was laughing at Irene. She looked down at the dress, her beautiful, carefully chosen dress, and saw it for what Madison had made it. Trash. Someone's garbage. A symbol of her worthlessness. She ran from the dance floor, through the hallway, out into the parking lot where she collapsed against a brick wall and sobbed until she vomited. Her mother found her there 30 minutes later, mascara streaking her face, the beautiful dress crumpled and ruined. Denise didn't ask what happened. She just held her daughter and whispered, "Baby Kiki, you're going to survive this. You hear me? You're going to survive them." But Irene wasn't sure she believed it anymore. Senior year brought the cruelest blow of all, the one that nearly killed her. His name was Marcus Thompson. Quarterback, honor roll, devastatingly handsome in that all-American way that made parents trust him and girls worship him. He started talking to Irene in March, just after spring break, approaching her in the library where she spent every lunch period hiding from the cafeteria's cruelty. "Hey," he said, sliding into the chair across from her. "You're Irene, right?" She looked up, startled, certain this was some new form of torture she hadn't anticipated yet. "Yes? I'm Marcus. I've seen your drawings, in art class. They're really good." Irene's guard went up immediately. "What do you want?" He laughed, a warm, genuine sound that made her chest ache with hope she knew she shouldn't feel. "Nothing, I wanted to tell you that. You're talented, like really talented. Have you thought about art school?" They talked for 20 minutes, then 30, then an hour. And when the bell rang, Marcus smiled at her and said, Same time tomorrow? For 3 weeks, Irene lived in a fragile bubble of happiness. Marcus met her in the library every day. He asked about her drawings, her dreams, her life. He didn't mock her clothes or her lunch or her poverty. He just listened, like she mattered, like she was worth knowing. And slowly, terrifyingly, Irene let herself believe that maybe not everyone at Grandview was cruel. Maybe some people could see past the surface. Maybe she wasn't as worthless as Madison said she was. When Marcus asked her to prom during their 4th week of daily library meetings, Irene's heart nearly exploded with joy. "Really?" she breathed. "You want to go with me?" "Of course," Marcus said, his smile wide and seemingly sincere. "You're smart, talented, and honestly, you're beautiful. I don't know why people don't see that." Irene went home that night and told her mother, who cried with happiness and immediately started picking up extra shifts to pay for a prom dress. They went to 3 different stores before finding one Irene loved, a soft rose gold gown that made her feel like a princess. Denise paid $200 she couldn't afford, and when Irene tried it on, she looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the girl staring back. She looked pretty, maybe even beautiful. Prom night arrived. Irene spent 4 hours getting ready. Her mother helped her with her hair, pressing it straight, curling the ends, pinning it into an elegant half updo. They did her makeup together, laughing at YouTube tutorials, applying lipstick with shaking hands. When Irene looked in the mirror, she saw hope. She saw a future. She saw a girl who might actually survive Grandview Academy after all. Marcus was supposed to pick her up at 6:30 p.m. At 6:45, Irene texted him. "Hey, running late? I'm ready whenever you are." No response. At 7 o'clock, she called, straight to voicemail. At 7:30, her mother suggested they drive to the school. Maybe there was a miscommunication. Maybe he was waiting there. They arrived at the gymnasium entrance at 8 o'clock p.m., and Irene stood outside in her rose gold dress, watching couples stream past her in matching tuxedos and gowns, laughing and taking photos and living the night she had dreamed about for weeks. At 8:30, her phone buzzed. Not a call, not a text. A video message from an unknown number. With trembling hands, Irene opened it. The video showed Madison's basement. She recognized it from Instagram posts. Madison was there, surrounded by her usual crew. Trish, Amber, and a dozen others. And there, sitting on the couch with a beer in his hand, laughing so hard he could barely breathe, was Marcus. "Oh my God!" Madison's voice shrieked from off camera. "Did she really think you were going to take her to prom? Did she actually believe you?" Marcus wiped tears from his eyes, still laughing. "Dude, you should have seen her face when I asked. She looked like I just told her she won the lottery. It was pathetic." "Did you see the dress her mom bought?" Another voice chimed in. "Trish, probably. I saw them at Macy's last week, and her mom was literally crying over the price tag. $200 for that sad little thing. Can you imagine being that poor?" The camera swung around to show Madison, her face flushed with alcohol and malicious glee. "Irene, if you're watching this, and I know you are because Marcus is about to send it to you, I want you to understand something. No one will ever want you. Not Marcus. Not anyone. You're poor, you're ugly, and you're pathetic. You don't belong at Grandview. You don't belong anywhere. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can stop embarrassing yourself." The video ended with the entire basement erupting in laughter. Irene stood outside the gymnasium in her rose gold dress, her mother waiting in the car 20 feet away, and she felt something inside her chest simply stop. Not break, not crack. Just stop, like a clock running out of batteries. She walked back to the car in silence, got into the passenger seat and said, "I want to go home." "What happened?" Denise asked, her voice tight with worry. "Where's Marcus?" "He's not coming," Irene said flatly. "Can we just go home?" That night, Irene deleted all her social media accounts, threw the rose gold dress into the back of her closet, and lay in bed staring at the ceiling until the sun came up. She didn't cry. She was beyond tears. She just lay there thinking about bridges and pills and all the ways someone could stop existing when existing had become unbearable. The only thing that saved her was her mother's voice in the darkness at 3 a.m. Denise had heard her daughter's silence, the kind of silence that screams, and came into her room, sat on the edge of her bed, and said, "Baby, I need you to listen to me. I know you're hurting. I know they broke something in you tonight. But you are not allowed to quit. You hear me? You are not allowed to let them win. You survive this. You graduate. You get out of this place. And then you build a life so beautiful, so successful, so magnificent that their opinions become dust. You don't do it for revenge. You do it because you deserve it. Because you are worth it. Because I didn't work 3 jobs to send you to that school so you could let those small-minded, cruel children decide your value. You are more than this moment. You are more than their cruelty. And one day, I promise you, you will be so far above them that you won't even remember their names." Irene didn't respond, but she also didn't reach for the pills in her nightstand. And when the sun rose, she got out of bed. Because sometimes survival isn't a grand decision. It's just a series of small choices to keep breathing, keep moving, keep existing even when everything inside you wants to stop. If this story is hitting you in the heart, do me a favor. Drop a comment right now that says, "I believe in second chances." Because what happens next is going to remind you that your worst moment doesn't write your final chapter. After graduation, Irene Parker vanished from Grandview entirely. No forwarding address, no social media presence, no trace. Madison and her friends assumed she'd ended up exactly where they expected. Working minimum wage at some dead-end job. Probably pregnant, definitely struggling, permanently stuck in the poverty they'd mocked her for. They were spectacularly wrong. Irene moved 3 states away to a city where no one knew her name or her history. She lived in a basement apartment with black mold on the walls and a landlord who didn't fix anything. She worked the overnight shift at a 24-hour gym, cleaning equipment and mopping floors from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. for $9 an hour. She worked the morning shift at a diner called Rosie's, serving coffee and pancakes to truckers and businessmen from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. for $7 an hour plus tips. And she worked weekend shifts at a grocery store, stocking shelves and running registers for $10 an hour. Between the 3 jobs, she slept 4 hours a night, ate ramen or peanut butter sandwiches for every meal, and used the gym's shower to save on her water bill. But during those stolen hours between shifts, those precious, exhausted moments when most people would collapse, Irene studied. She took free online courses in business management, marketing, and brand development. She watched YouTube videos about entrepreneurship and wealth building. She read every book she could find about starting from nothing and building empires. She taught herself graphic design, social media strategy, and financial planning. Her body was breaking down from exhaustion, but her mind was sharpening into something dangerous and unstoppable. She did this for 2 years. 2 brutal, soul-crushing, beautiful years of refusing to quit. And then, on a Saturday afternoon in November, everything changed. Irene walked into a small shop called Evelyn's Light, a boutique candle store tucked between a dry cleaner and a nail salon in a strip mall no one visited anymore. She was looking for a birthday gift for her mother, something small and affordable that would make Denise smile. The shop was nearly empty, dusty, clearly dying. Candles sat on shelves with faded labels and outdated designs. The air smelled like dust and failure. Behind the counter sat an elderly black woman with silver hair, kind eyes, and shoulders that carried the weight of too many disappointments. Her name was Eleanor Grant, and she was 72 years old, widowed, childless, and watching her life's work crumble in real time. She'd started Evelyn's Light 40 years ago as a tribute to her late daughter Evelyn, who died of leukemia at age 9. For decades, the shop had thrived. But times changed. Big box stores moved in. Online shopping exploded. And Eleanor, too old to adapt, too stubborn to quit, watched her customer base shrink to nothing. Irene spent 20 minutes browsing the dusty shelves, touching each candle gently, reading every label with genuine interest. She noticed the craftsmanship beneath the outdated packaging, the quality of the wax, the complexity of the scents, the care that had gone into creating each product. When she finally selected the cheapest candle she could find, a small lavender-scented one for $6, she brought it to the counter. Eleanor looked at the girl in front of her. Thin to the point of gauntness, dark circles under her eyes, clothes clean but worn, but something in her expression that spoke of intelligence and unbreakable will. "That's a good choice," Eleanor said, wrapping the candle in old newspaper because she couldn't afford proper gift wrap anymore. "Lavender for peace. We all need more of that." "It's for my mother," Irene said quietly. "She works really hard. I want her to have something that makes her feel calm." Something in Eleanor's chest cracked open at those words. The tenderness in them, the love, the quiet desperation of someone trying to give more than they had. She looked at Irene for a long moment, and then she said something that would change both their lives forever. "Do you need a job?" Irene blinked. "What?" "A job," Eleanor repeated. "I can't pay much, $12 an hour, 20 hours a week, but I could use help. Someone with fresh eyes, someone who cares about quality." She paused, then added softly, "Someone who understands what it means to fight for things that matter." Irene stared at her. "Why would you offer me a job? You don't even know me." Eleanor smiled. "I know enough. You spent 20 minutes looking at candles most people walk past without a second glance. You chose carefully. You thought about someone else before yourself, and your eyes." She leaned forward slightly. "Your eyes tell me you've been through something that either breaks a person or forges them into steel. And you, my dear, don't look broken." Irene took the job, and for the next 2 years, she learned everything Eleanor knew about candle making, business operations, and building something beautiful from nothing. But more than that, Irene brought something Eleanor had lost: vision. She redesigned the packaging with minimalist elegance that looked expensive without being pretentious. She created new scent combinations with evocative names like Resilience, Phoenix Rising, and Second Chances. She built an Instagram account and told stories about each candle, stories of hope, transformation, and survival that resonated with people who'd also been counted out and written off. The response was immediate and explosive. Orders poured in. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Lifestyle influencers discovered the brand and featured it in their posts. Boutique hotels reached out about wholesale partnerships. Within 18 months, Evelyn's Light went from dying to thriving, pulling in 7 figures annually. Eleanor couldn't believe it. She'd spent 40 years barely surviving, and this 23-year-old girl had transformed her legacy into something magnificent in less than 2 years. When Eleanor died suddenly of a heart attack at age 74, Irene was devastated. But she was also stunned to discover that Eleanor had left her everything: the business, the building, her personal savings, all of it. The will included a handwritten letter that Irene read through tears. "Dearest Irene, if you're reading this, I'm gone. But before I left, I wanted you to know something. You didn't just save my business, you saved my life. You reminded me why I started this journey 40 years ago, to create beauty in a world that so often feels cruel. You carry that same mission in your soul. This isn't charity. You earned every bit of this. Now go build something extraordinary. Make them remember your name, all. Make them sorry they ever doubted you. But more than that, make yourself proud. You are the daughter I lost and the legacy I always prayed for. Don't let anyone dim your light ever again. With all my love, Eleanor." Irene cried for 2 days straight. Then she got to work. She renamed the company Serenity and Soul and scaled it with ruthless precision. She secured partnerships with Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton, and Amman Resorts. She launched a luxury home fragrance line that sold in Neiman Marcus and Bergdorf Goodman. She hired a team of 15 employees, all women who'd been counted out by society, single mothers, formerly incarcerated, formerly homeless, and paid them living wages with full benefits. She moved into a penthouse in Manhattan's Tribeca neighborhood. She bought her mother a house and paid off every medical bill Denise had accumulated over 20 years of working herself to death. And she watched her net worth climb to $40 million. But the money wasn't what healed her. It was proving to herself that Madison had been wrong, that Marcus had been wrong, that every person who'd called her worthless, ugly, and pathetic had been catastrophically, devastatingly wrong. Irene Parker had survived, and not just survived. She had conquered. The reunion invitation arrived in a cream-colored envelope with gold lettering, forwarded to Irene's office by someone who'd tracked down her business address. She stared at it for a full 5 minutes before opening it. Grandview Academy Class of 2015, 10-year reunion. Join us for an evening of reconnection, reminiscence, and celebration at the Grandview Country Club. We can't wait to see how far we've all come. Irene read it 3 times, her expression unreadable. Her assistant, a sharp-eyed woman named Claudia, who'd been with her since the early days, leaned against the doorframe. You going? I don't know, Irene said quietly. They were awful to you. Yes. So why would you give them the satisfaction of seeing you again? Irene looked up, and something in her eyes made Claudia take a step back. Because I want them to see what they tried to kill. I want them to look at me and realize that their cruelty didn't break me, it forged me. Not for revenge, Claudia. For closure. So I can finally put that chapter of my life to rest. She RSVP'd yes that afternoon, and then she made a phone call to her stylist, her jeweler, and the Maybach dealership in Manhattan. The white Maybach arrived at Grandview Country Club at exactly 4:47 p.m. on Saturday, October 14th, 13 minutes before the reunion officially started, late enough to make an entrance, early enough that everyone would be watching. Madison saw it first, and the champagne glass slipped from her hand before she could stop it, shattering across the terrace floor in a spray of glass and golden liquid. People turned to look at her, then followed her horrified gaze to the white Maybach gliding to a stop like a ghost from their collective past. The chauffeur, a dignified man in his 60s with military bearing, opened the rear passenger door with white-gloved hands. And then Irene stepped out. The crimson Valentino gown hit the sunlight like a bomb of pure visual impact. The silk clung to every curve of her body, the crystals embedded in the fabric catching the light and throwing it back in 1,000 tiny explosions of brilliance. The gown's neckline plunged in a deep V that showed just enough to be breathtaking without being tasteless. And the slit up the side revealed legs that had been sculpted by years of discipline and self-care. Her skin glowed, not just from expensive skincare, but from the kind of confidence that comes from knowing you've beaten every odds stacked against you. But it was the jewelry that made people's mouths fall open. Around her neck, a Harry Winston diamond necklace featuring a 15-carat center stone surrounded by smaller diamonds in a cascade design, the kind of piece that required appointments, background checks, and insurance policies. The necklace alone was worth $850,000. On her wrists, matching Harry Winston diamond tennis bracelets, each containing 50 carats of flawless stones, valued at $200,000 each. On her ears, 5-carat diamond studs that caught the light like tiny suns. And on her left hand, a custom-designed diamond ring featuring a 10-carat emerald-cut diamond in a platinum setting, surrounded by smaller stones, worth well over $1 million. She was wearing approximately $2.5 million in jewelry, casually, like it was nothing. Her hair, those goddess locks that had once been mocked as nappy and unprofessional, now cascaded over her shoulders in an elegant waterfall, styled with gold thread and tiny diamonds woven throughout, each lock perfectly uniform, each one a testament to the beauty of natural black hair when treated with the care and respect it deserved. Her makeup was flawless but understated, glowing skin, subtle bronze eyeshadow that made her dark eyes look almost hypnotic, a bold red lip that matched her gown perfectly. She looked like royalty. She looked like power. She looked like revenge served cold, expensive, and absolutely devastating. The crowd on the terrace had gone completely silent. Every conversation died mid-sentence. Every champagne flute frozen mid-air. Every eye locked on the woman in crimson walking toward them like a queen returning to judge her former kingdom. Madison felt her legs go weak. Trish grabbed Amber's arm so hard she'd leave bruises. Marcus, standing near the bar with his wife and a slight paunch that spoke of too many desk jobs and not enough gym time, went pale, his beer bottle slipping from nerveless fingers, because this wasn't the Irene they remembered. This wasn't the girl they'd broken. This was something else entirely. Irene walked through the crowd with measured grace, her Louboutin heels clicking against the stone terrace with the rhythm of a countdown. People parted instinctively, creating a path, unable to do anything but stare. She didn't acknowledge anyone, didn't wave, didn't smile, just walked with the kind of confidence that comes from knowing you've already won every battle that matters. She reached the entrance to the country club, and only then did she pause. She turned slowly, her crimson gown swirling slightly with the movement, and she looked back at the crowd, really looked at them. And her expression was one of serene, complete, untouchable peace. "Hello, everyone," she said quietly, her voice carrying across the silent terrace. "It's good to see you all again." And then she walked inside, leaving them frozen in stunned silence behind her. The country club's grand ballroom had been decorated with carefully curated nostalgia, blown-up yearbook photos, a slideshow of high school memories, tables labeled with graduation years. Irene walked through it all like she was touring a museum dedicated to someone else's life. Which, in a way, she was. The girl in those photos. The one sitting alone at lunch, the one with her head down in every group shot, the one whose smile never reached her eyes. That girl didn't exist anymore. She'd been cremated in the fires of cruelty and reborn as someone stronger. She found her name tag at the registration table. Irene Parker, most likely to disappear, with a little smiley face someone had drawn next to it. A joke. She stared at it for a moment, then picked it up and pinned it to her Valentino gown, the diamonds in her necklace catching the light as she moved. "Irene?" She turned. Madison stood 5 feet away, her face a mixture of shock, shame, and something that might have been fear. Up close, Madison looked older. Not in a bad way, but in a way that spoke of a life lived without the hardships that forge steel. Her skin was still flawless, her hair still perfectly highlighted, her dress still designer. But there was something soft about her, something that hadn't been tested by fire. "Madison," Irene said calmly. No warmth, no hostility, just acknowledgement. I didn't think you'd come." Madison's voice was smaller than Irene remembered, less certain. Jesus, Irene, you look incredible. That dress, those jewels. What do you do now?" "I own a company," Irene said simply. "Luxury home fragrance and wellness products. We do about $60 million in annual revenue." Madison's eyes widened. 60 million? Give or take. Irene's expression didn't change. "It's been a good decade." "I can see that," Madison laughed nervously, her hands fidgeting with her champagne glass. "Look, Irene, I wanted to say about high school." She trailed off, clearly struggling. "What about it?" Irene asked, her voice still perfectly neutral. We were, God, this is harder than I thought." Madison took a breath. "I was cruel to you. Really cruel, and I've thought about it over the years, and I just want you to know that I'm sorry. I was young and stupid and insecure, and I took it out on you, and that was wrong. So I'm sorry." Irene looked at her for a long moment. The ballroom noise faded into background static. This moment, this apology she'd dreamed about for years, imagined in 1,000 different ways, was finally here. And the strangest thing was how little it mattered. "Madison," Irene said gently, "I appreciate you saying that, but I need you to understand something. I didn't come here for your apology. I didn't come here for closure from you. I came here for myself, to prove to myself that this place, these memories, don't have power over me anymore. Your apology doesn't heal what you broke because I already healed it myself. So thank you, but I don't need it." Madison looked like she'd been slapped. "Oh, okay." Irene smiled, not cruelly, but with a peace that Madison would never understand. "I hope your life has been kind to you. I really do, because I've learned that hurt people, and I'm not hurt anymore." She walked away, leaving Madison standing alone with her inadequate apology dying on her lips. Across the ballroom, Marcus saw Irene and felt his entire body go cold with shame. He'd thought about her over the years, usually late at night when his wife was asleep and his failures felt particularly heavy. He'd wondered if she'd survived, if she'd forgiven him, if she even remembered him. Clearly, She had survived. And when she walked past him without a glance, without even a flicker of recognition, he realized something devastating. She didn't remember him at all. Or if she did, he mattered so little that he wasn't worth acknowledging. He'd been a main character in his own guilt narrative for 10 years, but in her story, her triumphant, magnificent story, he was barely a footnote. The realization crushed him more than any confrontation could have. The slideshow started at 6:00 p.m., projected on a massive screen at the front of the ballroom. Someone had compiled hundreds of photos from their high school years, set to nostalgic music that made people tear up and laugh simultaneously. Irene watched from the back of the room, her crimson gown making her impossible to miss, her diamond jewelry catching the projection light and throwing sparkles across nearby tables. Then a photo appeared that made the entire room go silent. It was Irene, freshman year, sitting alone on a bench outside the school, her shoulders hunched, her face hidden behind a book, her entire body language screaming, "Please don't see me, please don't hurt me." Someone had taken that photo candidly, probably for mockery purposes, and someone had thought it appropriate to include in this nostalgia fest. Irene stared at that photo, at that broken, terrified 14-year-old girl, and felt something shift inside her chest. Not pain, not anger, something closer to gratitude, because that girl, that wounded child, had survived. Against every odd, against every cruelty, against her own desire to quit, she had survived. And she had become this, a woman in a crimson gown worth more than most people's cars, wearing jewelry that cost more than most people's houses, running a company that employed dozens of people and touched millions of lives. She walked to the front of the ballroom, her heels clicking in the silence, and stood before the projection screen, her crimson dress stark against the flickering images. People watched, confused, uncertain. She reached up and touched the projected image gently, her diamond bracelets catching the light. "I was 14 years old in this photo," she said quietly, but her voice carried in the silent ballroom. "I was terrified, I was alone, and I was breaking. Many of you contributed to that breaking. Some of you did it actively. Some of you just watched it happen and did nothing, which is its own kind of cruelty." Madison, sitting at a nearby table, looked down at her hands. "But I want to thank you," Irene continued, and people's heads snapped up in confusion. "Because your cruelty taught me something invaluable, that my worth has nothing to do with your opinions, that I don't need anyone's approval to be extraordinary. That survival is its own form of victory, so thank you for being so cruel that I had no choice but to become strong. Thank you for counting me out so thoroughly that proving you wrong became my life's mission. And thank you for gathering here tonight, so I could stand in front of you wearing a dress that costs more than your mortgage and jewelry worth more than your car, and prove that pain doesn't define destiny. We do." She turned and walked out of the ballroom, her crimson gown trailing behind her like a declaration of war won without a single shot fired. The white Maybach was waiting outside. As the chauffeur opened her door, Irene paused and looked back at Grandview Country Club one final time. It looked smaller now, less significant, just a building where small people once tried to make her feel small. She slid into the Maybach's leather interior, the door closing with that signature soft click of perfect engineering, and as the car pulled away, silent, powerful, unstoppable, Irene realized something profound. The best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's becoming so whole, so healed, so magnificently yourself that their opinions no longer have the power to touch you. The ugly duckling hadn't become a swan seeking their approval. She'd become a phoenix, and phoenixes don't look back at ashes. They just keep flying toward the sun. If this story reminded you that transformation is possible, that pain is temporary, but strength is forever, take one more moment to comment "I believe in second chances" and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because we all deserve the chance to rise.